Okay, I've got my pieces of wood cut. I've done 5. I actually did 6, but this one must have had a split along its length. Firewood, but maybe we can use it. Okay, so we're going to put these along here, and that should be fine. In fact, I'll turn that one around that way. And I'm just looking for flattish edges that will butt together quite nicely, because we are going to glue them together. Now I'm aware that because pallets are all these different sizes, you may have to make modifications in order to find timber that will work for this particular project. And we'll look towards the end, we'll look at a couple of ways of working around if you can't find a wider board like that and all you've got are these narrow ones like that. How can I make up wider boards when I haven't got fancy clamps and all the rest of it? We'll come back to that, because there is a way around that one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue these two onto this side, and I'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll look at these two little bits and say, well, is there a little workaround that we can use to get around that little problem? Let's just grab some slightly smaller nails actually. There we go. Right, so let's get these on first. So let's run some bead of glue down there, along that, back up the other side. I haven't gone all the way to the top, and there's a reason for that. I'll come back to that. There we go. I missed a bit there. There we go. Right, the first one. Line everything up. And that's the front, so we definitely want it to line up there. I mean, if everything isn't absolutely millimetre perfect, don't worry about it. Again, I'm just going to blunt the end of these nails just to make sure they don't split the wood. There we go. Don't drop super glue into your nail box, because that's what happens when something like that happens. Oops. These may not split the wood, but I'm not going to take any chances. I want to just check, is this... Yes, it's getting slightly wider as it goes up a bit, so I want to do that just to pull that in flexion. There we go. That'll keep it nice and... It's just when you're nailing at the ends of boards. Nailing in the middle, you wouldn't need to blunt the nail. There we go. And we'll put one in the middle for good measure. And that one. Okay, now before we put this next one on, what I do want to do is run a bead of glue along here as well. So at least the boards are stuck together. There we go. Get them onto there, give it a good push just to close up the gap as best you can. Again, I mean, you could actually blunt a whole batch of nails. I'm doing it on the cast iron bit. Now, some people say don't hammer on cast iron, but I'm not bashing down on it. I'm only tapping. And they're right, actually, you shouldn't bash down on cast iron because it will break. Now that one is going to split if I go any further, so we're not going to go there. To move up there a bit. And one more at the top. And the same on this side. There we go. Okay, we've got that side done. Any surplus glue, just wipe it off with your finger. Get it into that groove there. Same on this side. Need a bunch of nails again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll throw those back in there, then we don't get confused. Okay, more glue. On the other side. Long. Oop, and then get the bits we missed. There we go. That's plenty. Our next piece of wood. Place it on there. Take our nail. Now you could use panel pins for this. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to put them together. I mean, if you had one, you could use a nail gun. But I'm guessing if you're just starting out, you won't have a nail gun, whether it's electric or compressed air one. You just have to use whatever it is you happen to have. Right, another bit of glue on this other board. And I know people in the comments might say, oh, well, the boards will want to expand and contract. And yes, they will. And by gluing them together, it make it harder for it to do it. But it's a bird box. The worst that can happen is, yes, you might get a split in the wood. But I'm pretty sure the birds won't mind whatever happens. Oop, that one is not looking very good. Let's just see if I can just... There we go. They're all in. So there's the beginnings of our bird box. Just wipe off any little glue runs. Now then, we need to think about the roof. Two things we can do here. We can either, this is from that split board earlier, put a little piece of wood in there, but we'll have to slope it down because otherwise the roof won't sit on there properly. So we could do that. Or we could just simply leave it because the roof fits on like so. Either way, it isn't the end of the world. I'd be tempted to leave it. I don't think it is actually going to matter. But what would look a lot nicer though is if the slats of wood this time went down this way and overhung a little. So we could actually glue together 3 boards and that would give us a nice, in fact I'm going to pick 2 pieces of wood that look the same. There we go. To make this look even. So we need to work out what length these need to be, and looking at this you think, oh, we have to cut an angle, but we don't. What we can do is if one board finishes there and the other board finishes there, that will work absolutely fine. What we will have to remember though is the length of this board will be slightly different to the length of that board. So if we work that one out, and then we can look at a way to make a roof that can be lifted off and not cause the birds any great problems. But also means that we can get in there later on into the box to clean it out, ready for the following season. So what we need to do first then is have a bit of a measure. So if we look at that, we want to be, well, let's say, how much overhang should we give it? Should we give it a nice long one? I think we will. We'll say 15 centimetres for this side. In fact, I'm going to write that down. 15 centimetres for our first one, and our other one, which has to overlap, how long does that need to be? Because this time it's a piece of wood plus that. And I forgot to check, we are 25mm overhanging that. So on this side we want to be 25mm overhanging that, so it would be 65mm. Sorry, try that again. Try that again. We've got that, we've got our board there, and we want to be 55? Yeah, 65. So 165mm or 16.5 centimetres. There we go. So we need 6 pieces of wood in order to make this roof. 3 at 150 and 3 sorry, try that again. We need 6 pieces of wood. We need 3 at 15 centimetres, and we need 3 at 16.5 centimetres. So let's get those cut, and then we'll come back. It's just a case of taking our set square again, marking a line, cutting that, and then measuring along on this. I've lost my little ruler. If we're going for 150 millimeters or 15 centimeters, that would be there. So we need 3 at that size, and then 3, and if we're lucky we might just yes, we can get 3 out of that one. Is that one a longer board? No, it isn't. So we're going to struggle to get 3 out of that one. We might have to use a bit off one of the other boards to get the other one. Okay, so I'm going to get those cut, and then I'll come back to you with the various pieces. Okay, so we've got all our pieces of wood. I've got 3 at 15 centimetres, I've got 3 at 16.5 centimetres, and those are going to go on like so. And we'll actually let it overhang at the front just to make it a bit more interesting. But we'll need some little slivers of wood to put in between so that we can nail all these pieces together. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut a couple of strips off this, just by sawing down the length of them. Now, there's various ways of marking this. We could simply put our ruler on the edge there, like so. Grab a pencil. Whoops, try and line it up straight, and draw a line. And sort of that line there. Can you see that? Yeah. That would be the simplest way. If you happen to have a marking gauge like this, we could set the marking gauge to whatever we want. Let's say it was, we'll go 20 millimeters. That'll do. And then we could run that down the edge. In fact, my oops. And there's an actual, I've just highlighted it there. That was the ruler and that was my marking gauge line there. Either way will do, doesn't matter which one you choose. If you haven't got one of those, just use the ruler. If your ruler is, I don't know, maybe it's an old school ruler like this one. Remember those, the old shatterproof? Or non-shatterproof, I should say. Non-shatterproof. Is that really a word? I don't know. But that would be a bit wide, that one. But you could use anything, really. You could even use a scrap of wood, like so. And mark the line using a scrap of wood and just working your way along. All you want is a parallel line to the edge. That's all we're after. It doesn't matter which way you do it. So I'm going to cut a couple of strips off this. In fact, if I do 2 strips, I need 3 pieces in total. So that will work quite nicely. Oops, tripping over my mic wire. Okay, I've got my pieces of wood. If they're not absolutely spot on, it's not the end of the world, so long as they're near enough. So we want to cut them to fit in there. The simplest way to do it is just literally get a pencil mark there. And that's a bit of a scraggy end. I'll cut that. In fact, where have I put my saw? Just a second. Save going backwards and forwards. I'll put this in the vise. Now I haven't squared this all around. I'm just going to literally do it by eye. If you're not confident to do it by eye, then literally just mark it with your marking gauge or whatever you're using. There we go. Let's see how, got a little tatty bit on there. That's annoying. There we go. There we go. Let's get rid of it. So that's just a nice snug fit in there. That's what you want. You just want it to push fit in. So we need to do another one. Take the other side. Again, put it there. Use a pencil. Up there. That's where it has to be. Again, I'll use my vise. I think that's a bit on the big side actually. And I've actually cut that one a little bit on the generous side. So how do we make it smaller? Because it is about solving problems. Well, one thing you could do is, I had a piece of sandpaper a second ago. Don't know where I put it. Oh, there it is, it's under my saw. One thing you could do is get one of your random blocks of wood and a piece of sandpaper and literally just, ooh, this is actually get a better piece of sandpaper than that. I can get myself untangled. Let's see if that fits now. There we go. Because on the short length, it needed 2 strips of wood. So I put those together. They've got glue in between each board. I nailed those 2 little strips on there with the 20mm gap at the back. I then nailed on the long edge. So there's the short edge on this side, and I nailed each of these boards on and then flipped it over. There was glue between each of these, pulled those together and nailed on our last button. And that's how I got the roof assembled. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Sorry we missed out the actual doing that for real. Okay, we'll get back to the rest of the video now. Okay, I don't know whether it's really clear on camera, but right there, one of the nails actually came through when I was nailing that nail. It's actually bent round like that. So the question is how to fix that. And you don't need a bench to fix this. You could do it literally on any flat surface. I'm going to first of all just tap that out, but I'm going to put a little piece of scrap wood underneath there first, just so that the nail head has got somewhere to go. And just give that a couple of little taps. And that's just enough to raise that nail head up. And then we can pull it out with our claw hammer, he says. I need to tap it a little bit further. Now, if you can't get at it, because this one's a bit difficult to get at, what you can do is just use an old nail. Just wait a second while I get one. Just a regular nail. There we go. See that there? I'm just literally going to do the whole, just tap the head of it, not the head, the tip of it. Just so that I've got something to put onto that nail. And I'm going to just line that up there, a bit on there. There we go. And now the nail head is quite a bit further out, and that's quite easy to pull out now. So I'm going to pull that one out. Now, that nail's bent, so that's going in the bin. But we've got a hole there, and we don't want a hole there. So I'm going to get another nail. But what I'm going to do, I'll put it in there just to make it easier to see. I'm going to put it in that hole, but I'm going to actually point it the opposite direction that I want it to go, just for a second. And now it's gone nice and straight, it hasn't come out of there, and we're good to go. So we're ready to put the roof on our birdhouse, and it goes that way around, and it should fit on, and it's a nice firm fit. I can actually lift this bird box up by the roof and it doesn't fall apart, and that's exactly what we want, so that when the wind's blowing and things like that, the roof of their new net box doesn't blow off. I'm going to push the camera back a little bit, and then, oh, there we go, and you can see that a bit better. So there we go, there's our birdhouse. Those little gaps there are actually blocked by the little internal pieces of wood that we've put in. Can you see? Can you see there? So it seals the gaps up. So we're all good. Now, one thing you could do, if you wanted to, if we can grab some sandpaper, we could actually sand this and just make it a little bit neater and tidier. So let's just do that. Okay, I've got myself some sandpaper. What I'm going to do is just fold this. This is 80 grit, by the way. I'm going to fold it into 3. And the reason for folding it into 3, I'm not going to bother using a block, but if you fold it into 3, it will grip against your fingers, and it will grip, and then you can easily sand against the wood. And I'm just literally going to sand over it like so, just to remove any splintery bits that are left over, because this was always rough pallet wood. And I'm not going to worry too much about working with the grain, because this isn't a fine piece of furniture. What we're interested in is just making it so it's smoother to the touch. working our way around. Same on the sides. And any splintery bits there and here. One thing we will need to sand, with that out of the way, is the actual hole where the birds go in and out, because that's a little bit splintery. And whilst the birds will peck at the hole, certainly blue tits will, to make it to their liking, it's better if there aren't any sharp splinters sticking out. They'll be more inclined to use it. And there we go. Now obviously you could sand as much as you wanted to, or if you happen to have, if I can find one, if you have a power sander of any description, then obviously you could use that. A lot quicker, a lot easier, but I'm assuming at this point you've only literally got a saw, a hammer, tape measure, and maybe one or two other little odd hand tools. But there you go, from pallet wood, bird box. Now all you need to do is go and put it up outside somewhere and see if the birds like it. We could also paint it if you wanted to. Just use any paint you like, really. It doesn't really matter for something like this. You could even use an emulsion paint on this and it'd be fine. Anyway, there you go. So, my name's Dave. I'm the Skint Woodworker, and if you've enjoyed this, please give us a like, leave a comment, also don't forget to subscribe, and the elves at YouTube will let you know when I upload another video. Anyway, one bird box, ready to go outside, and of course you could make a whole series of these for friends, family. Okay, we've got everything now fastened together. We've got one little fault that I need to deal with, and then we can basically assemble it and we're done. There's a little bit of tidying up to do as well, a little bit of sanding. So let's tip the camera down so you can see what the fault is and how we're going to fix it. Because a lot of these little jobs, sometimes if you can just fix the fault, you're winning. Okay, so just bear with me a second while I just bring the camera down and we'll crack on. And please remember, if you haven't already, please give us a like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, and the elves at YouTube will let you know when the next video's up. Until then, take care. I'm Dave, and this is the Skint Woodworker. Bye now.